Welcome to Virtually Unbreakable, where we inspire you to live happier and more fulfilling lives. My name is Ella, and I'm your host. Today, my guest is Katie Price. Katie is a drama and arts therapist who lives in London. Together with Katie, we will talk about young people and the challenges that they face and the challenges that their parents face. Katie works in school settings and she helps young people and their families to learn how to recognize their well-being needs and how to take better care of their mental health. I'm pleased to have you here with me, so sit back, relax, and enjoy our show. Hi, Katie. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Ella. Thank you for having me.
No problem. So, Katie, can you tell me a little bit more about you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm trained as a drama and arts therapist, and I work across lots of different schools in and around Hertfordshire, so primary, secondary, special educational needs schools, and I've been doing that for about 6 years now.
Fantastic. Right. And how do you enjoy your job? What is it that you like the most about it?
What a lovely question. I love my job so much. What do I like the most? I suppose, first of all, working with children. I find that a real privilege. You know, as we know, childhood is a real crucial time in one's life. So for me to have the opportunity to work with children during that time, I don't take that for granted. So that's something that I really, really enjoy. And also, I suppose, the spontaneity of my role as well. One session is never the same as another. So you're kept on your toes, which is something that I do quite enjoy.
Great. Sounds very nice. So how did you actually end up working in that field?
Well, I actually started as a support worker for children with autism and challenging behaviour.
Okay.
And I was doing that job at the same time as studying for my first degree in the arts. And whilst I was doing that job, I realised that, you know, some of the children that we most need to reach, we can't always reach in sort of typical ways. So out of curiosity, I started to research and look at different modalities of therapy. And I came across arts therapy and was really, really taken by it. And, you know, that, like I said, the way that you can reach children that perhaps are non-verbal or can't communicate in typical ways. So then I left that role and pursued a master's in drama and arts therapy, and here we are.
Right. And I understand you work, like you said, in school settings. What is the age of children you normally meet?
So the youngest tend to be around 6 or 7, and then the eldest, we're talking 16, 17. Typically, though, at the moment, interestingly, my client load is mainly primary school children at the moment. Okay.
And I understand they come to you with a different symptoms and different problems. And I think here is a good time to explain what art therapy really is. So how do you help them? So some of us have heard about art therapy before, but to some of us, this is a completely new term. Can you fill us in and tell us a little bit more about what is art therapy?
I'm so pleased that you asked that. I think that's such an important question to ask. Okay, so the definition that I tend to give in its simplest form is that it's creative counselling, okay? And then to give you a more technical definition, it's a non-direct form of psychotherapy. So in a session, clients are encouraged to use a variety of artistic materials to explore self-expression. So we focus less on the verbal and the direct communication of me asking, how are you? What's going on for you? And instead we explore that through creating artwork, story making, storytelling, movement. Lots of different avenues.
Great. So that is a little bit unconventional, you could say. at least for some of us parents.
Mm.
But I would also imagine very helpful to take the pressure off the young person and put them on the spot and almost like interview them, right? Because what most of us are familiar with, I mean, of course, some of us had, whether we are parents or not parents, some of us had therapy before or counseling before, some didn't. But I think majority of people experience this traditional face-to-face type of interviewing, type of counseling, which can be very overwhelming for young people. So I think what sounds like to me, what you're doing great is you're giving those alternative ways for a young person to express their fears, their feelings, their anger, their frustrations, and perhaps build bond with them by opening those avenues to them and letting them lead you and show you what their life is about, and you just observe and listen and encourage them as a non-judgmental a third party. Am I correct in that?
That's absolutely, yeah. What a wonderful way to sum it up. I don't think I could have put it better myself. But absolutely, I mean, you kind of touched on it briefly there about it being client-led. And that is what I'm doing. I don't know where that session's going to go. I've got no real sort of certain questions or sort of 100% clear intentions in mind. I'm offering a space to that child, and we will see where that child takes us. Also, I think, working with young people, sometimes they're not able to tell us what's happening with words. They don't know themselves, particularly with, anxieties and things like that. They're not sure where that's coming from. And so giving a space where we take, like you said, the pressure off, putting words to that, we're giving opportunity for feelings to arise in, a less direct way. That's not to say that there isn't occasion, particularly with slightly older children, where some of that directness is needed, but that tends to come at a point a bit later on in our journey together where, the relationship and the trust is there.
Exactly. So it feels to me almost like a journey of self-exploration, where the young person is able to explore their inner world by activating their creativity, their imagination, their movement, not just vocally, not just by speaking, by showing and doing. So exactly. I just wanted to clarify that at the beginning, because I think so many parents are not aware of what art therapy really looks like. And I think, from my experience being a mom and being CBT qualified, I can imagine and I know that there is lots of benefits for us adults to take the pressure off children in whatever is that they're experiencing, the pressure to vocalize their feelings, because so often children, like we know, they don't have our life experience, they don't have our communication skills, they don't have a strong ability to vocalize what is going wrong with them, and they can't name it the way that is easy for us parents to understand. So what a wonderful way to work with children. Really well done on choosing this career path. Sounds like you're helping lots of families out there.
I hope so.
What are the most common issues you see in today's children?
So at the moment, we've got a really high number of children presenting with anxiety. So that's kind of a broad term. So that can fall under children trouble sleeping, children struggling to regulate their emotions, their behaviours, difficulty eating, self-harm, but it's mainly anxiety and the effects on that.
Right. And would you say that circumstances in the child's family play a big role to whatever is going on?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, typically a lot of the children I work with would have experienced a significant change in that family, and that could be anything from a parental split, a death in the family, the arrival of a new brother or sister, and oftentimes as well, I do work with children who have just been placed into the care system. So yeah, there's lots of different events in family life that can have an impact on young people for sure.
And we spoke about this before a few weeks ago, and we know that for a young person to have a good mental health, there are a number of aspects and factors, a huge number of things that go and influence how the young person is feeling about themselves and the world. And we know that there is a role that a young person themselves can play in improving that mental health, and a parent can play. What would you say are the biggest mistakes that parents make that significantly impact their child's well-being?
Well, I think that's the $1 million
question. It's a difficult question, but I think it's an important one to ask.
Do you know, and I think we're probably all guilty of doing this, and that is to kind of push a child's feelings under the carpet or instantly run away from a negative feeling. So for example, if a child is upset about something, as a parent, we want to like instantly put on our super parent capes and dive in and fix it straight away, and almost panic that they're not okay, and oh my goodness, what's wrong? Tell me, let me fix it. And actually, I think what we should be doing is just slowing down a little bit, listening to that child. And I mean, really listen, reflect back that you can see that they're upset. That must be really difficult. And explain that, you know what that's like. You know what it's like to feel upset or perhaps angry or disappointed. You're the adult. You get that. You understand that. And to be with them in that moment. It's okay for a child not to feel happy or not to feel okay. It's impossible. We're not as adults. So I think parents, well, in general, we need to get better at just sitting with a child in those moments.
Yes.
And I think, sorry, go on.
No, I was just going to say, in the book I recently read, the book You Wish Your Parents Read by Philippa Perry, there is a quote, a child should be felt with, not dealt with. And when I read that, it spoke a million words to me, because I think all of us are so guilty of jumping to solutions. And it's us being parents, and it's also us being a wife or a husband or a partner. As soon as we feel or see someone not feeling well, we want to offer a solution. And of course, when it's our child, we all get very panicky, and very often we get reactive, because we all have jobs to do and careers to get on with, and we are used to solving problems. So when our child comes to us, or not always comes to us, when we notice something is wrong with our child, we want to immediately get that, the reason for it, right? We want to immediately hear what is going wrong with you, what's happened, tell me everything what happened. And then we don't really allow the space for being with them non-judgmentally. And listening to what they've got to say from their soul, from their heart, by really sharing. And I feel that is also, from my observation, I've seen many children who are also feeling really misunderstood and lonely, not just by their parents, not just by their immediate families, but by their peers, their siblings, and so on, because we live in times where there's those instant fixes and instant solutions. And I have a feeling when it comes to children, we just need to allow a little bit more time for listening more and talking less as parents. Would you agree?
Exactly. Absolutely, I would agree. And I think, allowing those feelings, validate those feelings, and we can only do that by giving them space, by sort of jumping in and trying to switch off those negative feelings straight away. We're almost saying that, that's not what we're aiming for, they're not valid, but that is as valid as equally as being okay is.
I think another thing that can go, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think another thing that can go terribly wrong is when we say to a child they shouldn't feel the way they're feeling.
Yeah.
And that applies to adults, us talking to adults the same way. I think there's nothing worse than being said, being told to calm down or stop crying or stop being silly. Oh, you know, this is nothing. You shouldn't feel like that. Oh, darling, everything's okay. You should not feel like that. It's not. I think we are causing more harm than we are helping by actually giving comments like that, because what we are saying to our child at that moment is what you are feeling is not valid.
Exactly that. Yeah, exactly. And, you know, again, it's that, you know, if a child is upset, then something isn't okay. And who are we to say, oh, it's not a problem? Because we have to remember their worlds are much smaller than ours. So in their world, that's a huge problem. Okay, for us, if, you know, somebody didn't talk to us at lunchtime, in our much larger, more hectic worlds, that's very, very minute. But in a child's small world, that's a huge deal. So we have to validate that. And we can only do that by being with the child. We can't just tell them that that's not the case and it's okay, because in that moment.
And how can we be with the child more? How can we do that?
I think just by sometimes, you know, speaking back what we observe. So we see a child that's upset, simply by saying, I can see you're upset. That must be really difficult. Oh, I know what that's like to feel upset. Just simple things like that, because that instantly kind of almost levels the playing field. You're telling the child, I see you, I hear you, I get it. And that's before you've even started to think about what's caused it. You're just meeting them where they are at that point.
And that is the first step to building that trust for opening up. And then potentially looking for a solution, right?
Absolutely, because, you know, don't get me wrong, I'm a realist as well. I understand we can't just sort of coast through with no answers whatsoever. But what I'm suggesting is that we allow that time, and like you just said, that will come. But in that first moment of that emotion, we just need to meet the child where they are, and then we can think about what's causing this. Okay, let's take some practical steps to fix this.
And what would you say is the third biggest issue or a mistake that you observe in parents' behavior that perhaps parents are not aware of?
I mean, I think sometimes we're guilty of forgetting, and I know I am, you know, how much children absorb from us and how much they copy us and take on, you know, what we do, what we say, how we act. And so sometimes I think as the adults, we're in danger of not demonstrating our own mental health as well as we could. And I know that's incredibly difficult to do, but, you know, what I mean by that is sort of visibly showing stress all the time and then kind of just not explaining that to a child. So I don't know, you've got a huge thing at work, a big interview, for example, and you're visibly being really, really stressed about that. And all we're doing there is just showing the child that, oh my gosh, something's happening and I'm stressed. And so that's what the child learns, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. But I think what would be better is almost role playing that a bit further. So, you know, I'm really stressed about this, but it's going to be okay, because I've prepared. And you know what, if it goes a bit wrong, that's okay. Things like that. So we're not just sort of demonstrating a negative, we're kind of almost sort of looking at a bigger picture. Yeah, exactly that.
Happening. So would you say that what we parents can do better is model positive behavior?
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't necessarily mean, you know, we skip around happy all the time, because that's not realistic. But I mean, you know, positivity in terms of resilience. And you know, things are difficult at the moment, but this is my strategy, this is what I'm going to do, and it's going to be okay.
So by explaining a little bit more, giving the wider story, we are showing our children how to build resilience and coping skills should they ever come happen to be in a situation like that, right?
Precisely. Yeah,
Because
that's
children
exactly it.
learn from us, observe us, and listen to us, and set our behavior as a model in their subconscious mind.
That's it.
Great. And what about expectations? What about school and doing homework and all that? Because we parents know that there's so much drama happening behind closed doors in schools, and it seems like when our child leaves the house in the morning, they're relatively okay, and so often they come back and they're in tears, or they are heartbroken, or we have no idea what is going on. Do you think there's something happening at school, or certain expectations we put on our children, perhaps, or our children put on themselves when it comes to school life?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, there's expectations from every angle. I think there is expectations from teachers in schools. Of course, there has to be, they're there to educate the children. And so there is an expectation that the children, regardless of what mood they've left the house in, they will be present, they will complete the work, and they will keep up. And then I think we then have the expectation of peers that, that child will be, I don't know, for example, playing football or something at lunchtime. There is an expectation that they will do this, have this. Then we have the expectation of the parent, which is probably that, you will be happy, everything's okay. Then there's the expectation that child puts on themselves. So it's kind of coming from all different angles. And, I must say, particularly in this time after COVID, there is more pressure on children, the catch-up generation, if you like. And we're aware of how much socializing, education, things like that were missed during COVID. And so now there is probably more pressure than ever for those children to catch up.
Yeah. And not to mention all the exam stress on the top of that. And and perhaps also wider mental health issues in the families post-COVID. Because so many parents have lost their jobs, so many parents' businesses have suffered, their mental health has suffered, and that has impact on their children's mental health. So perhaps what we parents can do is be a little bit more self-aware and self-conscious of how our behavior and our emotions travel in the family.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
Great. What do you think a young person can do themselves to take charge of their mental health?
Well, I mean, talk. That's the first thing. I think if we sort of demonstrate to young people that, to use that famous phrase, it's okay not to be okay, for a child to speak out when, they're worried about something, or they're feeling nervous about the exam, or, it's upset them a little bit that, I don't know, they've noticed mum or whoever is stressed at the moment. A child speaking out about that is a fantastic first step for them to take. But I'm aware that that's not always easy for a child to do. But yeah, I think that themselves,
Okay. And what about, and what else can children do? Do you think, would you recommend that we encourage them to build some healthy habits at that young age already?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, children, they thrive in a routine, and I'm not talking, of strict to the minute routine, but certainly some sort of structure. Children enjoy that. It's almost a comfort blanket. It's a safety net for them, knowing what's coming. Also, as well, I think it's really important that within that routine, children have time to just be, to whether that's, I don't know, drawing or colouring, or, I don't know, reading a book that's not connected to school, or playing on the Xbox. That downtime is so important. I think as adults, we call it self-care now when we talk about having a walk, going for a bath or whatever.
Yes.
Children chilling and doing Xbox or just being, that's their self-care. And so I think it's important that we allow that as well. We give time to that.
And we don't restrict them to no TV, no tablet, homework and sport and going to sleep, because that can really be
Yeah.
not
And you
what
know,
they
we
need.
as adults, we I know it probably feels like it from time to time, but we don't just go to work, go home, go to sleep. You know,
Yeah.
we do things for ourselves as well. And I think we have to allow that. Kids are kids, they're not going to get that time back again. Let's allow them to have that freedom whilst they can, because we know what it looks like when we start to run out of that time as we get older.
Great. Well, Katie, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
In case anyone wants to find out more about you or art therapy, what would you recommend they do?
You can search me on LinkedIn by searching Katie Price. That would be probably the best thing to do.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I wish
Thank
you
you,
all
Anna.
the best. Thank
You
you.
too. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.